In this lesson, we're going to be calculating distance, midpoint, and finding an endpoint of a segment. So let's go ahead and get started. The first one says, find the exact distance between A being 5, -3, and B being 0, 2. So the distance is how long this segment is. So we're going to use what's called the distance formula. D equals the square root of x sub 2 minus x sub 1 squared plus y sub 2 minus y sub 1 squared. Now the distance formula is not meant to be intimidating. It's basically Pythagorean theorem, but using points instead of sides of triangles. The 1s and 2s by the x's, the subscripts, they just stand for the first set and the second set. So what I'm going to do, this is my first set of points. So this is x sub 1, y sub 1. This is the second set of points, x sub 2, y sub 2. The 1s and 2s just mean first set, second set. What we're going to do from here is substitute. And one thing that we tend to forget is we don't want decimal answers. We want an exact distance. So keep the square root throughout your problem. Don't just ignore it, because what you're going to end up doing is forgetting to write it in your final answer. So let's go ahead and substitute. X sub 2 is 0. So I'm going to replace x sub 2 in my problem with 0. Minus, and then I'm going to use my x sub 1. So I'm going to go over here. The 5 is my x sub 1. So I'm going to replace x sub 1 with 5. Put parentheses and square. I'm going to include the plus, and now let's move on with the y's. Y sub 2 is 2. So I'm going to replace y sub 2 with 2. Minus, y sub 1 is -3. So I'm going to replace y sub 1 with -3. Extend my little square root out. Now, notice what's happening in your problem. You have a double negative. It's your choice if you want to change that to plus or keep it as minus a negative. So I'm going to continue to simplify, and some of us like to get calculator happy and just type that whole entire thing into the calculator and not, pay attention to our parentheses. What I suggest to kind of make it easier until you build up to the fact that you can type it all in, what I would do is type it in piece by piece. I would type this first portion in your calculator first. Parenthesis, 0 minus 5, close parenthesis, square. We get 25, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to write 25 here. I'm going to bring down the plus, and then I'm going to go ahead and simplify the next set. If you do it in sections, it's going to be just a little easier for you, especially if you are unsure of how to type it in. So I'm going to do parenthesis, 2 minus -3, close parenthesis, square, and we get 25 again. So I'm going to bring this down and write 25. From here, I'm going to go ahead and simplify under the square root. 25 plus 25 is 50. Now, when we do square root of 50, we get a decimal. So we're just going to leave it as the square root of 50 for our distance. Now, you can type this straight into your calculator, the whole entire thing. It's going to look like this. 0 minus 5, close parentheses, squared, plus 2 minus -3 squared. And it will simplify it to 50. But if you're not comfortable doing it all at once, what I would suggest is doing it piece by piece and then simplifying it from there. Okay, let's go ahead and find the midpoint. So if M is the midpoint of RQ, R is -3, 9, and Q is 10, 4, then what is the location of N? So in this problem, we have the endpoints. We're given a segment, R and Q, and M is the midpoint, meaning it's the same, it's equidistant to R and to Q. The location of R is -3, 9. The location of Q is 10, 4. We're trying to find the magical location of the middle. So our answer is actually going to be a coordinate. It's not going to be just a number. In order to calculate this, we're going to use the midpoint formula. M equals, parenthesis, x sub 1 plus x sub 2 over 2, comma, y sub 1 plus y sub 2 over 2. What we're doing here is we're calculating the average. I'm adding two things together and dividing by 2. I'm averaging the x's and I'm averaging the y's. We're going to do the same exact thing that we did with midpoint. This is x sub 1, y sub 1, x sub 2, y sub 2. And midpoint is actually a little bit easier because in these problems, you basically just find your x's and you're just going to add them together. So I get m equals, parenthesis, negative 3 plus 10 over 2. And then I'm going to do the same exact thing for my y values, my 9 and my 4. I'm going to just add them together. I'm going to put a comma because my final answer is a coordinate. It is not just one single number. Now comes the simplification. And when you're looking at this problem, you're thinking, this is easy. I just type it in my calculator. Here is the mistake that a majority of you do, and it makes your answer wrong. You do negative 3 plus 10 divided by 2. And what your calculator actually does is it divides 10 by 2 first. 10 divided by 2 is 5. Then it does negative 3 plus 5 is 2. That is totally not right. You don't want to do this. You need to put the top in parentheses because your calculator is not smart enough to know that you want these two numbers added together unless you tell it, hey, parentheses are first in order of operations. You have to group them. So notice I typed in the same numbers, but on the top I didn't group, and on the bottom section I did. So the correct way to do this is to put the numerator in parentheses, then divide it by 2. Or you can do it the top first and then do answer divided by 2. Both of those options are correct. So I'm going to leave it as 3.5, or math enter changes it to a fraction. I'm just going to go ahead and leave it in decimal form as 3.5. Let's do the same thing for the y values. I'm going to put parentheses first, 9 plus 4 divided by 2, and I get 6.5. So the midpoint, the location of the middle, if I were to graph this on the coordinate plane, is 3.5, comma 6.5. All right, let's do our last type of problem. Now, in this problem, we are actually calculating the location of an endpoint. So it says the midpoint of AB is M, which is 8, negative 4. And A is negative 6, comma 9. We want to calculate the location of B. So if we're going to do a little sketch like we did up above, AB is the name of the segment, and M is located in the middle. I'm going to go ahead and label in my picture. So M is 8, negative 4. So we know the location of the middle, and we know where this segment starts. Negative 6, 9. We don't know the location of where it ends. So notice the similarities and differences between these two problems. In this first one, we didn't know the location of the middle. In this last one, we do, but we don't know where the segment ends to make this length equal to this one. We are still going to use the midpoint formula. M equals parenthesis x sub 1 plus x sub 2 over 2, comma, y sub 1 plus y sub 2 over 2. We're going to use the same formula, only now instead of solving for M, we already know M. We're actually going to be solving for x2, y2. So this is actually x sub 2, y sub 2. We have no idea what it is. So let's go ahead and substitute in. The midpoint is 8, negative 4. We're also given one set of points. These are now x sub 1, y sub 1. So when we substitute, I'm going to replace x sub 1 with negative 6 plus x sub 2 over 2, comma. My y sub 1 value is 9. 9 plus y sub 2 over 2. From here, all you're going to do is set two different equations up. The 8 is in the x location. This is in the x location. You set them equal. 8 equals -6 plus x sub 2 over 2. Because this fraction has to simplify to give us 8. You're going to do the exact same thing with -4. -4 is in the y location, and this is the y equation. So you're going to set them equal. -4 equals 9 plus y sub 2 over 2. From here, the math is identical on both sides of your equation. You're always going to clear the fraction, meaning multiply by the denominator. So I'm moving the 2. 8 times 2 is 16 equals -6 plus x sub 2. Then I'm just going to add 6 to both sides to get 22. So 22 equals x sub 2. I'm going to do the same thing with my y's. I'm going to clear the fraction by multiplying by the denominator, so the 2's cancel. 2 times -4 is -8. Bring down the 9 plus y sub 2. You do not mess with the numerator. The numerator just gets brought down. Then I'm going to go ahead and subtract 9 from both sides. -8 minus 9 is -17 equals y sub 2. What I'm going to do from here, that's actually the location of B. So my final answer is going to be put into parentheses. X first, then y. So the location of my other endpoint, B, is 22, -17.